Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you've now had the opportunity to work through the audit and think about what you're already doing to support the well-being of your staff throughout this academic year. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my presentation now so that we can move on to the next stage. Okay, so we've already talked about how COVID-19 is impacting on people's well-being, and the things that you've just been looking at with your team around supporting well-being are a really good baseline for starting to make sure you're looking after the well-being of your staff. The programme that we're going to talk about now, called PERMA, is to try and help enhance that work that you're doing, to try and support members of staff to work through and think about how they can enhance their own well-being. And by well-being, we mean not necessarily people being happy and the best they've ever been, but feeling, as it's described, a satisfactory condition of existence. So they're feeling well, they're feeling generally happy, and that feeling of well-being is well established. So let's have a look at what PERMA is. So PERMA is a programme devised by a psychologist called Martin Seligman, who is the main driver of the positive psychology movement. So that's about using psychology and about what makes us feel good rather than looking at psychology of what's gone wrong in our lives. And so Seligman did a huge amount of research into what are the things that help people feel good about themselves, what helps them lead fulfilling, happy, meaningful lives. And he identified 5 key elements which form the 5 parts of PERMA. So those 5 elements are positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. And so we're going to use this model, and you're going to be thinking about how you can use this model to support your staff to reflect on their own feelings and to reflect on how things are going in school as well. And you're going to be thinking about how can you support them to do this. So the model really works on a stop, look, listen, think process. So when we're in a difficult time, as we are now with COVID, our focus is sometimes drawn to all the things in our lives that are hard, the things that are going wrong, the things that are causing us stress. And what PERMA does is it encourages you to stop, look, listen, and think about those really small little things that are really good about your life, that are still good, or things that give you joy in your life. And just the act of noticing these things really helps to amplify them and make us more aware of them. And this then leads to us being more aware of the positive things in our life and enhances our feeling of well-being. And if you do any other work around mindfulness or well-being, you'll recognise a lot of these techniques because they're really common in mindfulness and in solution focus work, and they focus on enhancing and amplifying those positive feelings. So as we're working through this, just think about, we're looking at finding those opportunities and instances of good things happening, and then recognising and amplifying them. And if you think about how this happens with children, we talk about catching children being good. What we're doing here is catching ourselves being good, catching ourselves noticing those positive things in our life and amplifying that. So let's have a look at PERMA. So as I said, there are 5 elements, and as we go through this manager's session, I'm going to introduce you to each of the 5 elements in the same way that I do on the staff videos. But I want you to then think about what you could do as a management team at an organisational level to support staff when they are working through this programme. And so it runs parallel to the sessions, the videos for staff, but it's not quite the same. And really the sessions for staff are for them to do separately, individually, about their own lives. This is about the whole school level and how you can support it. So the first element of PERMA is about positive emotions, and this is the one that we usually start with because it's got the most obvious connection to happiness and well-being. And so focusing on positive emotion isn't just about smiling. It's not about that trite, happy, clappy sort of like presentation. It's about noticing and acknowledging those things in your life that enhance your well-being and make you feel good. And so everybody's having difficult times at the moment, and there are highs and lows. And if we just focus on the lows, it really has a negative impact on your well-being. So we need to help people reflect on and find those positive things that give them that warm feeling inside, that positive emotion. And if you looked at the research behind this, there are a huge number of health benefits to optimism and positivity that Seligman's worked out, and you can read about if you want to take this further. And developing that positive emotion, developing that acknowledgement of positive emotion is really important to helping people carry on with their lives, their daily tasks, and persevere when things are difficult, because they've got that sense of there are elements of good things in their lives and well-being. So let's have a look at what we asked the staff to do in their video. So in the staff video, we asked them to think about something that made them smile this week. And I think the important thing is to make sure this is something small, and we're not asking for big things like going on a holiday or winning the lottery. We're thinking about tiny things that give people that positive, happy feeling inside. And so the examples we give here might be about seeing a nice sunset, seeing a bird in your garden, seeing a photograph of your family. And what we try and do is get them to think about how that makes them feel. So where is the feeling in the body? Is it here in their chest? Is it in their face because they're smiling? And we describe those as fuzzy feelings, that fuzzy warm feeling you get from something positive. And we ask staff to make a conscious effort to spot any time over the coming week when they might feel like that. And we ask them to jot it down so that they can keep a note of that and almost build a log of positive emotions that they've felt. So what we need to do now is think about how can you support that positive emotion in the workplace. So we're thinking about how can we support staff to have those positive emotions and those feelings of well-being in the workplace. And some of the things that come through the research, but also through people talking to me about it, are things like fun and humour. Can you think about how you make sure that fun and humour are part of your school and your organisation? What about things like thank you cards between members of staff? And just random acts of kindness. There's a huge amount of research about the positive benefits of doing things for other people. And so is there a way that you can build in random acts of kindness into your organisation? You might want to have a board for sharing positive emotions, or an email area where you share positive things. There's lots of different ideas about how can you support people to recognise those feelings and then share those feelings. So if you want to pause the video now, just have a quick think about what you could do or what you already do to support positive emotions in your setting. The second element of PERMA is engagement. So engagement, sometimes it's hard to describe, but what we're talking about is when people get into the zone and when time really flies by during an activity. So they totally switch off from what's going on around them and they're totally engaged. And that sense of engagement allows you to have some respite from all the other things that are going on around you in your life, and to really sort of recuperate and gain some positive energy from the thing that you're engaged in. And so it doesn't have to be a particular activity, and it can be anything really. So it might be playing an instrument, playing sport, watching a film, working on a project, but it can be something as simple as watching your favourite soap when you're so engaged, watching other people's lives that you just forget what you're doing and everything around you. So helping people find that sense of engagement and what it is for them is really important. And this engagement, it helps calm us and give us some focus. So let's think now about how you can support people with that engagement in school. Oh, sorry, I forgot, this is the slide that we take the staff through. So we ask them to think about what it is in their lives that helps them to switch off, and to where time flies, they seem to lose track of time, and we give them some examples, and we ask them to think about and notice this over the next week. So as a management team, how can you make sure that you're supporting people to be engaged in the workplace? And sometimes that might be about helping them to align what it is that they're interested in, what it is that really engages them, and helping make sure that that is part of their week. And it's drawing on people's strengths and interests is a really good way of supporting engagement, and also helping people have the opportunity to really work through that. Making time for working with other people are really positive ways of doing that as well. So pause the video, have a think about, if we want to support people to be really focused and switched on in school, are there any things that we could do to enhance this? The third element of PERMA is about relationships. So we know that relationships and social connections are really crucial to our lives, and we thrive on those connections with other people. So we talked about earlier how COVID has really damaged our ability to connect and have relationships with other people due to the distancing regulations, due to not being able to see family and friends and go out with people. So we need to think about how we can support people to recognise those small opportunities they have to be with other people, to connect with other people, and to feel part of a bond with other people. So what we do in the staff videos is to ask them to think of any positive interactions that they've had during the week with friends or family, and it might be with colleagues as well. And it doesn't have to be face to face, it might be over Zoom, it might be through a different route. And so it's just really simple things like sharing a smile, somebody saying thank you to you, or doing something with somebody. And we ask them to think about how that made them feel in terms of the emotions that it brought about for them. And we ask them to then go forward and think about any times during the forthcoming week when they feel they had a positive interaction, or that they had a good relationship with somebody. So the task for you as managers is to think about, how do we support the development and maintenance of relationships in school, given all the constraints that you're working under? So things like, how do you could you think about how you spend time together at lunchtime, even if it's by Zoom or by other means? You know, can you hold walking or lunchtime meetings to connect with more staff? Can you look at who's paired with who and how you support that development? All those things about relationships. How can you connect people, keep people connected? If you used to do things as a staff before, social events, how can you recreate those social events through virtual means so that people continue to have those strong bonds and those feelings of positive relationships? So pause the video now and have a couple of minutes thinking about how you can support development of positive relationships in the workplace. Okay, so we're on to M now, which stands for meaning. And this is quite a tricky one, but really what this is about is feeling part of something bigger than just us. So for school staff, it might be about thinking about, why do we do what we do? What is it that drives me to come into school every day? And being able to understand and reflect on why we do what we do, and how we are part of that bigger system sometimes helps us to feel a sense of well-being. And for some people, that might be about their religion or spirituality, and that will give them a sense of meaning. But it might be something less than that. It might be, the thing that really drives you and gives meaning to your life is raising your children or your family, or you might volunteer, or you might really enjoy watching the seasons and nature as they change. And so that feeling of being part of something bigger, just a small cog in a bigger thing, sometimes is a really positive way of developing our well-being. And I think for schools, this is quite an easy one in some ways, easier than if you're doing it as an individual, because what you're going to do is understand that the work you're doing is having a huge impact on children and young people, and it's going to have a long-lasting impact on them. So the meaning in your life is probably about the contribution you're making to children's lives and to families' lives, and particularly now during COVID-19. So the exercise we ask people to go through on the video is thinking about what they spend their non-working time doing, and thinking about what it is that makes them feel part of that bigger picture, and noticing when they feel part of something bigger than themselves. And so as a management team, I think the focus here is probably on helping people remember what it is they do and why they do it, and what are the positive benefits that they're providing for the whole community through the work that they do. So things like, how do you make sure that staff have opportunity to reflect on the difference that they're making, and providing them with some of that data to show them actually we're making a real difference here. We are changing children's lives, and things like using your school development plan, your mission statement, etc., to really help people think back and reflect on, actually, this is why I do what I do. This is the meaning in my life. Is a really positive way of supporting their well-being. So have a couple of minutes to think about, how do you support people to feel part of that bigger picture, and to find some meaning in what they do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so the final part of PERMA is about accomplishments. So this is about having things that you're working towards. And I'm hesitating to say achievements and goals, because I think that sounds very big and grand when people are already at full stretch. But it's about making sure that if you have goals in your life, they are tiny and incremental and they are achievable. So going back to that whole thing about having smart targets, if we set ourselves goals, they've got, and particularly now, they've got to be achievable, and they've got to be something that we can just work our way towards. So a goal for somebody might be that actually they're going to try and do the washing up this week or today or whatever. That might be the main goal that they have. Or it could be something big, like thinking about learning a language or learning an instrument. All of those are goals that we can work towards and then have small steps of progress in. And the well-being comes from that sense of pride and fulfillment when you've just moved a tiny bit closer to that goal. And those feelings really help drive us forward and give us meaning and a sense of well-being. So what we ask the staff to do is to think about, is there anything that you'd like to do but have never got around to? So it might be something big, like learning an instrument. It might be small, like making 5 minutes for yourself to sit down for a cup of tea every day. And we ask them to set themselves a goal and then just notice any small steps that they take towards achieving that every day. And it's really important when people are tired and people are exhausted to not give them yet another thing to feel that they've failed on. So I'm really conscious that any goals have to be set by staff for themselves, and they have to be tiny, and the smallest step moving towards them is good, rather than having to actually achieve the whole big goal. So in terms of how do you support this in the workplace, it's thinking about how do you acknowledge those small steps of progress or the good things that people have done? So thinking about how do you give voice to accomplishments? How do you let people know that you're pleased with what they've done? And things like making sure that explicitly naming success and how and why it's happened are really, really valuable. So people feel that it's not just them recognising their accomplishments, it's other people as well, and particularly you as managers. So just have 2 minutes to think about what can you do to make sure that your staff feel that they are valued and that you're recognising their accomplishments at work. Okay, so we're now almost at the end. I just want to think a little bit with you about how you might implement PERMA in the workplace. So you've worked through all of those 5 elements about PERMA, and you should have some actions or some ideas about things that you'd like to try and do to support the development. So there's an action plan in the whole school workbook which you can use, but you also need to think about how you're going to communicate to the team about PERMA and how you're then going to implement the actions and how you're going to review them. And just to reiterate, it's really important during COVID-19. People are tired, staff are tired, you're tired, and people's emotional resources are low. So we need to make sure that if we're using PERMA, we're doing it in a way that doesn't create additional demands on people and make people feel that there's yet another thing that they have to do. So I think you need to think carefully about how do you want to introduce PERMA in your school? What will it look like? And how can you make time for people to work through the videos and work through the thinking and the reflection that needs to happen in a way that doesn't create additional demands for them? And you might think about whether you do some of it as a whole staff, whether you just offer PERMA as an option for people, anybody who's feeling that it would be helpful, or whether you let everybody go through the PERMA programme and then talk about PERMA as a whole school at the end of that time. So it's really up to you, and it's what's going to work for your school. And I think maybe some of the seminars that we do, the webinars that we do on a monthly basis will be useful for people to come back and say, okay, well, we were thinking of doing it like this. So you can talk to me, but also talk to your colleagues about how they've used it and how it's worked for them. So this would be my proposed model, but it is really not set in stone. So if there are things you want to change about it, then that's absolutely fine as well. So the first part is what you're doing now. So you're going to work through the PERMA for School Leaders presentation, and there's the whole school wellbeing checklist, which you hopefully have already had a look at now, and you'll have worked through the PERMA workbook, which just gives you those how you're going to support PERMA at a whole school level. You then need to think about how you're going to introduce PERMA to the staff, and so the slides are here. You can take slides from this presentation and use that to talk to staff if you find that useful. And then think about if you're offering PERMA to staff, if you're encouraging staff to take up the PERMA individual videos, how can you give them time to watch the videos and complete the work? Is there a way of doing that through meeting time or through how you organise your PPE or other time? And is it compulsory? Do you have to do it, or is it something that people can opt into? So once you've decided about that, then clearly I think it would be really positive if you could share your whole school PERMA audit and gather from staff any other ideas that they have about how the school environment could support wellbeing and how the school environment could support PERMA. And then you can redraft your action plan and then continue to use the webinars to look at and review what you're doing, how it's working, and what else you could be trying. So just to remind you, so the resources that are available, there's the introductory video training for senior leaders on staff wellbeing, so that's what you're doing now. There are the 6 mini PERMA videos for school staff. There's the PERMA audit, which can be used by individuals but by school as well. And then there's the PERMA action plan support, which are the consultation sessions that you can book onto. Just to point out, there are 6 mini PERMA videos, whereas there's only 5 letters in PERMA. The reason for that is the final session helps staff think about the overall view of PERMA in their lives, and it takes them through the audit process, if that's what they want to do, so that they can think about which areas of their life are more fulfilled and which areas they maybe need to focus in on. Okay, and I'm going to take you through the audit now, because it is something that's available, and whilst it isn't aimed at individuals, you can use it at a whole school level as well, to look at your view as a management team of how is the school functioning. So if you want to, you can use the PERMA audit to evaluate the school, and I'll show you it in a minute. And there's a scoring system of 0 to 10 and a series of questions about how your school is functioning. And because I'm asking you to do this at a whole school level, unless you collect data from individuals, which you could do, but I think maybe isn't the easiest way of doing it. I think I would like you to think about just getting a sense of your school. How do you think your school is functioning? And answer the questions about your school rather than basing it on actual data. And so 0 means not at all, and 10 means completely. And you work your way through the questions. Don't spend too long on them, because you can go back and change it later, and you can also play with, oh, if I answered like that, what would it look like, and do some playing with it. The spreadsheet then automatically calculates your score on the 5 areas of PERMA, and it plots them onto a graph for you to see how you've performed in the 5 PERMA areas. So if I just give you an example here, so these are the questions, and they are focused at individuals, but you could then just read it as about your school. So the first question is, to what extent do you feel part of a bigger picture? So you might want to rephrase that to what extent do staff in our school feel part of a bigger picture? And you give it a score between 0 and 10. And then if you see there on the right hand side, it gives you a culmination of all the questions relating to positive emotions, all the ones relating to engagement, etc., and gives you a percentage score for that. And if we then look at that on the second tab, it plots it onto a graph for you. And so you can see for the scores that were filled in there, people were really engaged in what they were doing. Relationships and positive emotions were strong, but accomplishments were not so strong. And so if this was done by a school, we'd need to be thinking about, okay, so how can we help people feel that they're recognised more and their accomplishments are recognised more, so that they feel that sense of recognition and value. And that would be something for the school to be working on. Okay, so we're nearly at the end now, just a couple of last things. So with everything, it's really important for us to be able to see that this is a useful programme. And in some ways, you guys are the guinea pigs to see how well this works. Whilst it is an evidence-based programme, developing it in this way for use in COVID-19 is new, and we want to try and collect the data to see, does it make a difference? So I think you will have already completed the staff wellbeing checklist before you got access to the materials. So what we want you to do is to complete the checklist again when you've finished the programme. And I'm guessing the programme will last about 6 weeks, so about half term's worth, because we want to give people the opportunity to do the videos and then have a week to reflect and think about and notice the things that we've asked them to do. So you will be asked by the Skills for Bradford team to, I don't know where that's popped up from, you will be asked to submit your final readings again, so where you redo the checklist and then send that to us so that we can do some analysis of whether it's made a difference to how things feel in your school. So return the data to the EPT plus any other feedback, and we can do some evaluation of that and look at the impact. So all I need to say now is thank you for listening. Thank you for all of those activities that you've done, and say good luck. And you know where the seminars are, the webinars are, and join in the webinars so that I can support you, and your colleagues can support you, and you can support your colleagues, so that there's that mutual support there. If you do need any further information, here's my contact details, and I'm really happy to answer your questions at any point. Okay, and thank you, and I'll see you next time.